So here we have the 2018, this is question 6, leaving cert ordinary level, and this is a question on algebra. So this is what we're given in the question, and we're asked to solve for x. So what I'm first going to have to do is multiply out my brackets. So when I have two things here, and there's two things in each bracket, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to split my first bracket and then x by my second bracket and then my plus 5 by my second bracket. So I might do this on the side. So I have x by my 3x minus 4 and then my plus 5 by my 3x minus 4. So I might just do this out here. So x by 3x gives me 3x squared, x by minus 4 gives me minus 4x, 5 by 3x gives me 15x, and 5 by minus 4 gives me minus 20. And then I'll multiply out this bit, so minus 3 by x squared gives me minus 3x squared, minus 3 by 2 gives me minus 6, and then that's for that bracket, and then I just have a plus 4 at the end. So that's equal to 0. So now I have a 3x. Now I might group together terms that have a common, say, variable like x squared and x squared. So I have a 3x squared and another minus 3x squared. So that's going to be 0. Anything minus itself is 0. And then I have 4x, minus 4x, and then 15x. So that's going to be 11x. And then I have, 20 minus 20 minus 6 is minus 26. And then I have plus 4. So that's going to be, 26 minus 26 plus 4. So that's going to be minus 22 is equal to 0. And now I'm going to have to get numbers on one side and then everything else that doesn't on the other side. So 11x. So if I plus 22 on both sides, I get is equal to 22. So if I divide then both sides by 11, I get that x is equal to 2. So that is my answer for x. And then the next part B of that question, we have 5 and then over x plus 3 minus 1 over x is equal to a half. So what I'm going to have to do first in this question is I want to get rid of my fraction, and the first thing I'm going to have to do in order to do that is I'm going to have to get a common denominator. So a common denominator is something that each of them will multiply to give. But I know if I actually multiply all these together, that could be my common denominator, because it's hard to get something that we don't know what an actual number that all of them will multiply to give, because we don't know what x is. But I know if I multiply x plus 3 by x by 2, I'll get a number that is each of them multiplies to give. So if I am to change, if I'm to change this common denominator to x plus 3 by x by 2, well, what am I going to have to change to the bottom? I already have an x plus 3, so I'm going to have to multiply it by a 2 and by an x. So now I have to multiply the top by a 2 and by the x. So whatever I change to the bottom, I have to change to the top. For my x here, I already had an x, so I'm going to have to multiply it by an x plus 3 and a 2. So I have to multiply the top by x plus 3 and a 2. My 2, I already had the 2, and then I have to multiply it by an x plus 3 and an x. So x plus 3 and an x. So the top has to be multiplied by x plus 3 and x. So now I have the exact same common denominator underneath everything. Well, what I can technically do is multiply both sides of my equation by the denominator, and then if I'm multiplying by the top and the bottom, anything divided by itself is 1, so they're just going to cancel. So now I'm just left with my top bit. So I'll write out my what I have on the top. So 5 by 2x is equal to minus 1x plus 3 over 2 is equal to 1 x plus 3 by x. So 5 multiplied by 2 gives me 10, by x gives me 10x. So I might multiply my minus 1 by my 2 first, so then I get minus 2x plus 3. And then, sorry, that's not meant to be an equal sign there. I just wrote that in there by mistake. So that's just a subtraction. So my equal sign is here, and then we have so the 1 is just going to be 1. So then 1, so then I have to multiply my x, the x by this one, so the x by this one, and then the x by the 3. So the x by x gives me x squared, x by 3 gives me 3x. So now I'm going to maybe multiply this out. So I have 10x minus 2x minus 6 is equal to x squared plus 3x. So now it looks like I'm going to have a quadratic. So I might try get everything onto the side that has a positive x squared. So firstly, actually I might simplify it a bit first. So I have 10x minus 2x. So that's 8x minus 6 is equal to x squared plus 3x. So if I want to move my 8x to this side, I can say subtract 8x from both sides. So then I'll have minus 6 is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 8x. If I want to get my 6x onto the other, I can plus 6 on both sides. So 0 is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 8x plus 6. So now I have a quadratic, but I'm just going to simplify put these two together. So it's x squared minus 5x plus 6. So now I have to solve this quadratic. So quadratic is when I have an x squared, an x, and then a number that doesn't have an x. So I'm looking for the factors of the number that doesn't have an x that add to give the middle term. So I have a plus 6 here. So I could have multiplied two negative numbers to get this, or I could have multiplied two positive numbers. So I could have had 6 by 1 as factors. I could have had minus 6 by minus 1. I could have had 2 by 3, or I could have had minus 2 by minus 3. And they're all the factors that I could have had of plus 6. But if I add 6 and 1, I get 7. If I add 6 and minus 1, I get minus 7. Here I get 5. Here I get minus 5. So the pair of factors that I'm going to have to pick will be minus 2 and minus 3. So I form brackets and I put x in each of them. And then I put minus 2 and minus 3. So when the only way I can multiply two things and for my answer to be 0 was if one of those things were equal to 0. So I have to let each of these equal 0. So I have to let x minus 2 equal 0 and then x minus 3 equals 0. So then I get x minus, so if I plus 2 on both sides, I get x is equal to 2, and then if I minus 3 on if I plus 3 on both sides, I get x is equal to 3. So I get my solutions are x is equal to minus 2 and x is equal to 3.